So officially starting here, welcome everyone. This is Open Sessions 3 from the Open Data Editor community. My name is Lucas Preti. I'm the Communications and Advocacy Director at the Open Knowledge Foundation. We are the organization, as you know, developing Open Data Editor and bringing these specific sessions and moments where the community around the app can gather and discuss some relevant issues and some stuff that are key points or topics to the project. This is the third session we are having from a series of 4, each one with different topic. The next one, the last one, will be by mid-October, but I'm not focusing on it now because we are just starting the Open Session 3. This topic of today, teaching AI literacy, is something that we've been discussing in some other fora or some other spaces that we create, some of them with Marek, who is here, who we will introduce in a minute, because we are really very interested on this. And we think from Open Knowledge Foundation that this is where we can really tackle things that are important to us, to our vision of technology, right? So we are trying to develop AI in a different way through the Open Data Editor, as most of you know. And we are trying to tackle the literacy challenges, basically, by reactivating the School of Data project. We had like a roundtable around AI literacy with like different School of Data chapters around the world. So that's what we think is our role, like getting people together to reflect on all these things and trying to take all these reflections into their practice worldwide, right? We have people from all around the world here. Basically, the open sessions are gatherings from the community. So some of these people have been testers or are part of the pilot organizations who are piloting the Open Data Editor. Some of them have are literacy practitioners in their countries. So this is what we think is good, like getting out people like from different backgrounds and perspectives and origins and countries as well, cultures, to tackle all these issues together. So it's great to be here. Today it's a slightly different structure. The other open sessions were, let's say, more open even. We just had like one provocative question and then the conversation emerges and then we go with the flow. But today we have, let's say, this figure of like someone who is expert. And this person is Marek Tuksiński. He's the founder of Tactical Tech. He's been supporting us with AI consultation and his ideas around technology, actually, not only to AI, to some other instances of this project. And we really wanted to have him here, like to do some provocative questions, but also to facilitate a conversation in a more unstructured and spontaneous way, instead of like just a presentation. Of course, he will present some things, but the idea is that this gets conversational as soon as possible. Okay, so this is it. Marek, over to you. And from now on, I'll be joining just as someone else in the conversation, not as a facilitator or presenter. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I will be very quick, and I'm going to overload you with information a little bit. But the idea of this overload is to stimulate different, direction of thinking, and then I will try to do it as quick as possible because I think more time we should give to all of you to, have a discussion, not necessarily with me, but among yourselves and so on. So I just want to refer to one thing that we just heard, which is about literacy, because I think this is like a massive difference between literacy in general, which is learning symbols that can be ordered in words and sentences that enable you to communicate, to either write or to read, which is a tool for a lot of different kinds of things, but it's fairly universal. You can do a lot of stuff with that. Digital literacy is more complicated because actually we're not going to be talking about learning in a symbolic way of assembling things, disassembling them, if you like. It's more about, and this is where the complexity comes in, is it about learning a specific tools and master them, or is it about understanding what's behind these tools? And for me, literacy is exactly that: understanding where they're coming from, who's behind them, how they work, what they do right now. At Tactical Tech, we kind of, I would repeat the sentence from Stafford Beer, that was a cybernetician from a long time ago, who said the purpose of the system is what the system does. And for me in Tactical Tech, we look at technology, what is it doing right now, right here? Not what anybody is promising you it may do in the future, what it can be good for if XYZ, and so on, etc. We always look at it. The purpose of the system, the purpose of AI is what it does right now. And it's getting very complex. So we start from that. You can question that if you want to later. Where is my presentation now? I completely lost it. This is bizarre. Uh, but you have it on the screen, right? Mm. Here, okay. So the first thing I want to talk about when you talk about AI, I want to kind of raise three big problems. A, that AI is not an epistemological system that either processes or produces knowledge. I mean, we as humans, as users, can use it for production or processing of knowledge. AI, the generative AI that we're using, is exclusively statistical tool for processing patterns. And thanks to the high quality of data, super high speed of processing that data, that reproduction of patterns may appear to us as production of knowledge, as intelligible text, video, whatnot, and so on, etc. But we have to remember that it is not. It is not what it is promising, and it requires a lot of past data to give you a solutions that always going to be based on past ideas. It is incapable of generating anything new because that is not the purpose of the system. It is heavily dependent on the data, and the problem with data, with big quantities of data, now the data used for the models that we're excited about is huge and new because it was scraped from internet, from all the legal, illegal resources and so on. But in the future, more we go in using AI tools, it will be scraping and using data that may become more and more corrupted. More and more corrupted because it will be exposed to data generated by itself, by the AI tools that we're using. And that will create totally different types of entropy. And when we talk about AI, we also focus a lot on software because this is what we use. But the problem that the software is kind of making us think of is the fact that we don't see the hardware, the infrastructure that is under the software that you're using, that exponentially have grown. The basically weekly growing data center size of airports and amount of technology that is required to be put in and replaced very frequently. The chips and the hardware like hard drives have to be replaced every 3-5 years, if not more often. At this scale, you can imagine how big the problem is. So that's kind of one set of ideas around what it is, what it depends on, and what it sits on in terms of infrastructure. Second thing I wanted to talk to you is about a lot of talk about don't worry about that because now AI is only 5 companies that or plus Chinese and so on, and they are proprietary. They black boxes. They call them open this, open that, but they never open source. But in the future, we'll have more open source tools, and it's gonna be all fine. I mean, all of these tools will have the same problems: patterns, data, infrastructure. First of all, and secondly, it will be very hard for a lot of entities to open source the tools as they are. What we see now is open source, is user interface, is the already trained models and some weights that are being used to manipulate these models, if you like. What we haven't seen, with a couple of exceptions, is the fact that nobody discloses except one institution what data has been used for training, how it works, what algorithms were used to exercise the training of the models, and so forth, etc. And other thing I want to say, and I'm saying that more and more about different kinds of digital tools, that when we don't skip this one. These digital tools that we're using today are not tools. Often they, combination of different kinds of things, but also the tool is not only the software. is not only the hardware. The tool also is the intentions of the makers, the coders, the owners, the venture capitalists, and so on, etc. It is also power, influence, and other things that we do not consider, that we downloading and starting on our devices. We still think about these tools as standalone little apps. None of it is anymore little app. Every and all of these things, except for even some open source things, they will still rely on other parts of this entire mega structure of what's behind the internet that we're using right now. And then last thing I want to say, maybe a couple of things. What happens when we start removing human from processing knowledge between problem and solution? Um, the problem with AI is that it doesn't see any new problems, doesn't see any new solutions. It's already been trained on things in the past. It doesn't have access to new paradigms, new theories, all these kind of things. And again, it's not generating knowledge, it's just assembling patterns that satisfy the query, the prompt, what you want to do with it. And it may be good for things that you just want that from that tool, like a decent translation. But then even translation is much more at hand. You're not only transferring one language into another language, and it's kind of a neutral process. You're giving an access to the entity from outside to not only do the process of translation, but you give an insight into communication and knowledge, you know, personal information, professional information, and so forth, etc. And it is filtered through servers, machines, and whatnot on the third end, and that is very complicated. And it also impacts the way we see the world, we see the problems. It also impacts the growing gap between skilled and experienced people that do different kinds of work when they use AI as an assistant versus unskilled, untrained, and early in their career people who lose access to these experts because the experts rather rely on AI tools than employ younger people and work with them through kind of establishing them in the field that they work, and so forth, etc. That's another set of thoughts. And when we talk about impact of AI, we normally you hear it, oh, it's gonna do this or it's gonna do that. What we're trying to do at Tactical Tech is map all of it because it's very complex, and you want to talk about ethical and social impact, environmental impact, governance and accountability impact, economical, market and labor impact, and security and human rights impact, plus many other things. This is just a snapshot of what I'm often looking at. I'm not going to dive into it. If you want to talk about it, you see I have it, we can talk about it. And the other provocation is, and this is something that you're going to know very well, that all these AI tools, especially generative AI that we're using right now, are extremely empowering individually. It's very hard to tell anybody that they are not good for something, because our personal experience very strongly is positive in a sense that we try to translate something, magic. We try to create an image, magic. We use it for analysis of sentiment in a large quantity of text that is very hard for us to process. You get a few nice sentences fairly accurate in some or other way, and it also becomes your advisor, expert. It becomes the superpower tool for you to do things that you don't have the skills to do, or even like a partner to conversation. And for me, it's very important to look at it from the kind of provocative statement. Is it adding up that all of us individuals are empowered and kind of our efficiency is better, while the group efficiency and group empowerment is decreasing kind of at the same time? So individually you're having these experiences, but as a society, the impact of these tools is more of harm, more of disinformation, more of confusion, more of polarization, and it makes easier not only things for us but for everybody across the board. For good guys, for bad guys, is free for all to do whatever you want. And then you will have a kind of a dilemma at some point as a person, professional, and as an organization. How are you discussing using or not using? Do you do AI or not internally? What do you agree? What is the red light? What is the yellow light, what is the green light for you? Are we agreeing that it's okay to use it for translation? It's okay to use it for analyzing our audiences? Versus how you communicate, how you are using, experimenting, and deploying AI for your external audiences. So those were the topics I wanted to talk with you, and I'm gonna stop here and see what you want to talk about, and I'm gonna go back to the image. So it's kind of funny.
Anyone, please just jump in and say your thoughts, and ask questions, or just comment or react. I find the first slide very nice, like the one like opening the box and the triangle, saying what's actually AI. Right? That's really cool. Yeah. Patterns, infrastructure and data. That's
Those are the three takeaways I want people to, normally when this is the minimum I want, like the takeaway to be, to dispel the myth of intelligence, knowledge, and so on, etc. That is not in the generative AI whatsoever. To highlight the data dependency and we have to talk about hardware. Really, we can't build these systems endlessly because we will run out of ability to build the hardware to maintain it, basically.
Yeah, but I think there's also this let's say more philosophical question about education, right? Like the one that you just started saying, like what does literacy mean and what does digital literacy mean and so on. Like learning about any system or learning about anything, right? It's has to do with like acquiring skills or acquiring like critical thought, right? Like of being able to identify what's happening, right? Just trying to simplify language here, but like right. So if you're talking about AI literacy here, or teaching AI literacy, so let's see ourselves as facilitators of this knowledge somehow, right? So when we're talking about groups or communities that we teach, or if we're giving a course, or even like the open editor course, just to connect to this initiative beyond like the ones we do in our lives. So how to take this approach of like opening the box, right, when doing something around digital literacy. When and that connects to the end. I'm just formulating my thoughts here, but connects to the end. Like when the individualistic approach of neoliberal, late society is actually asking people to acquire skills, right? So when they just enroll in a course, saying like, oh, I need to master this tool, master AI, and so on. They want to learn skills and how to do their jobs better and whatever, right? But I think our role should be like opening their minds for critical thought and critical thinking and knowing what's behind this one. So I think that's this duality for me is like it's very hard to navigate when you need to deliver projects, or you have to feed yourself like on society. So anyway, like thoughts about this, not only for you, Mark, but like for everyone. I'm
Sure.
just putting also, like,
I can
no,
just tell you how who is going there. Okay, go on.
No, that's fine. No, go ahead. I think no one's
Me,
speaking.
okay. I was just saying
Yeah.
that we have. I mean, our approach is that we do both. So we meet the audiences where they are, and I work with journalists, for example. I run the sessions for like a number of NGOs, like even yesterday, where we went through, going through with prompting, how prompting works and what they can do with it, etc., and so forth. But we make all the disclaimers. What does it? It's not only what you're doing, and then what we normally design is like we agree with people who commission us and so on to do both things. Okay, you think about literacy and skills in a very narrow way, we can deliver that. However, in exchange, we want to be able to talk to the same audience and expand the understanding, about the actual tools, because they are very different tools they used to be, how they connected to different kinds of things. And we never were rejected. Never anybody said no, don't do that. We just want prompts. I think there's a massive hunger for doing that, but people are kind of worried that it is very difficult and people may not want to do it, but because the demand is for prompts and new tools and how to do it more privately and so on, etc. Like everybody from tactical tech historically expects the magical tools that are better than tools that they already use, and we always have this dilemma that there are no such tools per se. So we have to go through the entire process, but it works really well, and I think you are in the same position in a way.
Yeah, see, there's a comment here by Sabrina. Do you wanna elaborate on that, Sabrina? Do you wanna put you on the spot at all? I can just read if it's okay. If you cannot, if you don't want to open your camera and speak. But also provocation to others. Like I'm sure I know some of you, you've been engaging with these things a lot. So please bring your perspectives.
I mean, in a way, Sabrina is typing. I think you are not able to speak.
Yeah,
that's why you're
that's fine,
typing.
that's fine.
So that's fine. It is partially similar to free and open source software, partially not. But that's like a totally different conversation. I don't really want to go because even I change. Tactical tech is entirely built around open source free software, Creative Commons, and everything that is decentralized, community based, and easy to localize, adapt, and all of these kind of things. And we're never gonna change that. But I think there's a difference between. We used to think that free and open source was also political. I think temporarily it was political in the fight with, in the 90s and early 2000s, where the license was a political counter to proprietary license and so on, etc. But I think it's over years lost completely the political power. It's been overtaken by other things, while still maintaining, it's the most coherent way of freeing software. But this software, Truth Social runs on Mastodon. You know, Microsoft owns GitHub, that is the biggest repository in the world of open source code, and Amazon entirely runs on services on open source. Android, the biggest success of Google is open source. So it's kind of the open source success become a success of the world that open source kind of was initially designed for, we were thinking. So I'm kind of expanding now all these notions and thinking about it differently. That's that's my way of thinking about the politics of technology beyond the licensing and so on. So that's the conversation I would like to take it for at some point. I think Precious is waiting for saying something. Go ahead.
All right. Well done, Marek. Well, I must say this is actually about the first time I will be involved in this discussion. As in the discussion centering around the philosophy of AI, the philosophy behind the technology of AI. Um, I think this is going to be a very difficult discussion because, well, AI has come to stay, and I like the direction Marek is coming from because we need to be aware of the risk, and we also need to be aware of what we are getting ourselves involved in. Well, maybe if this discussion was had like say 10 years ago, maybe that would have helped, but the ship has sailed, and we're in the realm of we're now in the unknown territories practically when it comes to AI. So because nothing can be, the ship has sailed practically. So but my fear with AI is this: we know historically winners tend to influence history. I want to come from the angle of history when it comes to when might was right. Those who win wars influence history. They could eradicate the history of their of those they conquered. So technically, that is a big risk because that means that the knowledge we have could have been compromised. You get, and that is almost the same trajectory that AI is running on, because those who probably have the cash to run this technology will be the ones influencing discussions, and that will keep on having multiplicity effects on into the future. Is there anything we can do to is there any way we can influence these discussions in such a way that we can let people be aware of this risk, that people can actually hijack the process of the evolution of AI misinform the world because there are those in charge of the technology, there are those in charge of the resources. So what do we do in the face of such threats?
This is a very good question. Thanks for that. And it's to make you focusing more, less on philosophy, more on politics of the technology and the impact and how it influences different kinds of important issues that we should be focusing on, and limits our ability to do so, because it is promoting a specific way of processing knowledge, information and data and evidence that is totally based on computation and patterns, which is very narrow way of seeing the world. So what we can do depends who you are. Like in our case, I'm always kind of being super realistic. Like Tactical Tech is right now 14, 15 people. And we do a lot of creative education, exhibition, workshops, and so forth. And we work with a network of hundreds of schools, libraries, community centers, and so on. That's for us the kind of a community with whom we're trying to shift the way these tools are being introduced to this environment, when very early people start using them as a empowerment in the education process and so on, etc. We also work with groups that advise on policy making. This is where we see our role as a practitioners working in the field to kind of rephrase things. And we also do investigations. So we try to open the black boxes in different ways. And our investigations cannot be technically like auditing, because the black boxes are black boxes. You can't really see them unless you go into the company, sign non-disclosure agreement. But we design investigations that go around this problem, and we kind of, through looking at what the algorithm is doing into different variations of situations, we can reverse engineer how it is being designed, what is the purpose of the systems, and so on, etc. And I think we all have different roles here as organizations and individuals, but I think individually we have to kind of dispel certain myths. But I agree with Sabrina and with you that sadly individually, even in this conversation, most of us on this call personally benefit from the AI you're using, and you won't give it up. And so I'm not even trying to tell you to give it up. I'm trying to tell you, what are the risks of all of us, well aware politically, socially, and whatnot, historically, individuals, in what we're participating, and what kind of machine we're feeding with our time, our skills, and our abilities, and what we're giving up here. And and then individually and organizationally based, we have to make decisions. How are we going to inform ourselves, how we dealing with that, and how we go forward. I mean, with journalists, it's hysterical for me, where all of the newsrooms I work with are absolutely aware how big disaster was to rely on social media, big platforms that completely destroyed their income models, and completely took them away from any information influence. Like, people don't go to these media outfits. Like, majority of you get the information from whatever, Instagram and so on. And so they all know that what was proposed, promoted, and inserted into their workflows by big tech wasn't a good idea. And they come to me and they say, we know that, and now can you teach us how to use AI in our newsroom? And those are the same actors, the same technologies, the same politics behind them, and the same business models. These have not changed. And I'm like sometimes thinking, are we serious here? Like, why are we not seeing it? What's going on here? And I think the problem is that the individual empowerment is completely blinding us from any kind of stepping back and seeing long-term impact of all these kind of things. We kind of have this fear of missing out, that if we're not going to learn these things, others going to learn these things, and they're going to be better at things we should be good, kind of things. There's a lot of fear about future, what's next, are we there? And if we're not going to do it, then China's going to destroy everything, which is like, okay, impossible conversation to have. Sorry, I'm just a bit ranting because I've been talking about AI for every day, few last days, and I'm getting more and more annoyed, actually. And I maybe should chill a bit. Are there any other questions or comments, or also answers to?
No, that's great, actually, Mark. That's actually great. Because like it comes to this utopian thing of like, oh, if everyone stops working, and there will be no society as we know, like, or if everyone's just stopped using social media, like there's no. But yet that's so utopian. Like, doesn't exist. And that's the question, like why even knowing all these things, like people are still there, like you still consuming information from there and so on. Yeah, that's a background question that is really difficult to tackle, and not create your own universe, right? Like, I'll go free, I'll go to the newspaper and so on, but like, okay, it's just you. It's also an individual.
But let me like I also try to be more creative about it. Maybe there's something else going on that we should be talking about. We're not talking about. Maybe some of the jobs we're doing are very routine, automatic jobs that actually AI is very good at. And the same with education. Maybe some of the education we've been doing, teaching kids stuff, maybe the processes we're going through, how we design exams, how we design progress in learning and so on, etc., because it can be now replaced by support of different forms of AI that kids are using and teachers are using and so on. Maybe we should be more critical about how we run an NGO, how we write reports, how we write proposals, how we do this kind of things. Because what I'm saying, this kind of, I just finished an application to a funder on Friday, and the funder sent information today that the new record was beaten. We got 7,600 applications, and they're gonna give 30
half
out.
of them are AI
and
powered.
My thinking is, okay, majority of them have been either written entirely by AI or with a heavy support of AI.
Sure.
Of course, the foundation will now be like, we can't process it, so we're gonna hire some consultants, and they're gonna use AI, and they're gonna use. And we're living in this world where our interaction that should lead to figuring out problems, to actually figuring out the way we impact, with what we do, etc., and so forth, is mediated on two ends by automated systems that talk to each other. And I'm kind of feeling more and more claustrophobic in this environment, and I'm kind of looking for way out. And in a way, I don't want to participate in this aggravation and acceleration of these very specific tools that may have a purpose for specific things, but useful things that I think are essential for society. I find it extremely problematic.
Yeah. No, amazing. Let me try to connect all this thinking with the question that Sabrina just asked a while ago with the Open Data Editor, because I'll just take Romina, who is our product owner, that she's in the room here. Because Sabrina's question is like, my concern is how to advocate when talking about AI literacy when people are so focused on short-term efficiency, right? I think all the conversation we are having is around that, actually, like efficiency, and like your application to this funder, like it's about efficiency, or like how to run and study and process all these applications. It's also about efficiency and so on. And the Open Data Editor is about efficiency on cleaning data, basically, right? So I really want to, Romina's perspectives or opinion on that challenge, actually, because many times we've been asking ourselves, okay, so do we really need AI in this app? And first of all, we need, because fear of missing out. We need to develop those things in our applications, because if not, maybe they'll get outdated fast. So that's one perspective that you just brought, Marek. But at the same time, when you see specific things, you say, oh yeah, AI could make us more efficient. Yes, true, right? And that's the thing that Sabrina just brought into the conversation. So just want to hear from Romina, trying to put all together here, your thoughts on who is really developing an application, every day with, trying to put AI there, with having these things in mind.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that question. I mean, one of the things that we discovered while building the product is through user testing sessions, but also through pilots, is that people, when we ask people, what do you want AI to do? They mention things that they could be solved basically. So basically, there's this idea that AI is efficient and can do all, but we have all tools that are functioning quite well to solve the problems that we need to solve. That's one thing. And the other thing is that there's also a black box, not also in terms of the technology and how it works, but also in terms of, again, the knowledge that we have for the AI. Basically, I mean, again, thinking about and how do we communicate and how researchers and how everyone is talking about AI, we are assuming things in terms of non-technical audiences. For instance, we talk about models, and we got some questions from our potential users of the ODE mentioning, I mean, asking us, what is a model? What does a model contain? How it works? There are basic but key questions that are not discussed in these spaces where we think everyone is participating. So I think we need to, it's a moment also to step back, stop thinking that AI is efficient and that can solve all the problems, and start talking to people that are part of different communities to try to understand what are the needs and how they work with AI. I think that's also a key conversation, and I don't know if it's taking place in, again, these well-known places. And regarding, I mean, the uses, what we discover is that also like non-technical people wants to use AI to do everything. Because again, they do not understand how these things work, because we are not explaining how these things work. Again, we are writing papers, we are going to conferences, we are doing a lot of things, but we are not talking to the people that use these tools. And then again, we ask AI to do a lot of things that maybe it can do, in the sense that, for instance, we are working on implementing local LLMs, and we got a lot of requests to basically allow local LLMs to start correcting errors in tables, to start analyzing data, and that's not possible with local LLMs. So we also need to have conversations in terms of what is a local LLM, how it works, what does this mean for like people, real humans. So I think, again, I think also Marek mentioned this, but how do we put humans on the loop and start having these interesting conversations and step back and reflect on all the discussions that are taking place in places that are outside the common places.
Anyone wants to react to that? I'm happy to keep asking you guys things, but also want to make sure there's space for anyone to jump in and react and comment. If not, I can bring another topic that's exactly like the human in the loop that you just said, Romina, and reading again, like for the pattern recognition, like your number one here in the slide, and thinking about some of the work we are doing with some of the pilots, especially like the AA, OVO, an AI of our own. I don't want to ask Tatenda specifically, but if you want to jump in, would be great, because what they are doing is actually trying to consider and to develop AI in the cultural level, right? Like, because like different cultures and different people from countries, background, whatever culture, human cultures, express differently through language, right? Language in a philosophical sense as well. And this is one of it's a language model that it tends to be homogenic, right? So because it's based on pattern recognition. Just want to bring like diversity conversation about it, because when we talk about also AI literacy and opening the box and trying to avoid the efficiency over critical thinking, all these things that we are overlapping a lot, and not putting like the cultural differences and all this, I don't know, speeches that we had, the discourse we had like 20 years ago around tolerance, peace, I mean, all these things that are, diversity, all the discourse around globalization that, it's also liberal, but like there were, this feeling that, we need to be open to the otherness, all these things. I think AI is actually maybe bringing this discourse to that, right? Everyone is actually wanting to be the same. To get your example, like your applications for this funder, they're very similar to each other, probably, right? Of course, you need to bring your human factor is like the artisan factor, like the human hands, right? Will be like the differentiator. But it's a gem. It's one thing, right? I don't know. Just wanna hear if anyone has perspectives or comments or things around this, or you as well, Mark. Because if we are really going to like this homogenic sea, yeah, Precious, come on.
Well, with respect to AI replacing humans, well, I think I wish I could do a research on our loneliness level, suicide rates, and I think machines are gradually replacing almost every one of us. So we live in a world that is so interconnected, but yet we are the loneliest of all generations. So I think something is going wrong, and I, I really don't have the answers. So maybe I'll just ask some of the questions that come to my mind. Maybe there should be some policies that restrict how will I put proliferation of AI, especially when it comes to replacing human interactions. That is something very very serious that we should look into. I there was this record of a lady who died 2003, and notice of his death was not known until 2006, when his bank record, when it's the fund in his account ran short, because she was paying for her rent directly from her account. So immediately the funds in her account finishes. That was when they got to know that she's dead. She was dead 3 years. So so AI is gradually making us. It's affecting human interaction. So I think discourses should start centering around how we need to tame AI so that we will not get extinct by our own making.
I can make comment on that because this is something for those who've been at the workshop yesterday. I said that this is I'm working. You're talking about the new generation and so on. I've been working recently for last few months in Taiwan with over 65. We're running series of workshops because Taiwan and other places in that part of Asia are much more advanced in how technology is being present and so on. It's not even about AI, and I learned a lot of things from that. But then I'm the kind of developing new educational materials because for me there are three types of interaction with AI that we cannot beat and discuss, and they make everything super complicated. That exactly are what you're talking about, Precious, which is that even we here are using AI as a companion. It become a friend, a therapist and whatnot. Like, oh, you can ask any questions, share all the kind of problems you have, ask for any advice, all these kind of things, and that's one to system relationship. But there are many ones, and we never think about these many ones. But these many ones are being quantified into groups of people with certain characteristics, right? The second type of usage of generative AI is AI is your handy assistant and expert that gives you superpowers. If you want to generate the code, write the music, write the text, edit, translate, all these kind of things that the generative pattern-based AI is able to do for you, that is very hard to do. You have to learn it and so on. And it's again one to system relationship. And the third type that is also hard to beat. More and more AI becomes a magic box and a fortune teller, kind of spiritual entity that you're exploring things that are hard to explore with other humans, if you like. And then maybe about anything really. And it's useful. It's very useful for many kinds of things. I don't want to kind of undermine people who believe in spirituality and other things, but machine doesn't have it, right? That doesn't have knowledge, doesn't have spirit, doesn't have soul, doesn't have brain, doesn't have any of that, but is able to emulate interaction that responds to us in such a way that is pleasing, satisfying, encompassing, and almost feels empathic. It is none of it because it has no capacity for that. And I think dealing with these three is already a nightmare when you talk about it, because you're talking to people that are entirely dependent. I don't want to use words like addicted and so on, etc., but dependent on this synthetic relationship. And I cannot offer anything that is as smooth as that. Everything I can offer will have more friction, and this is about efficiency pressures that we were talking about. So we really have a challenge that is societal challenge, that more we allowed this synthetic system to enter intimate human spaces of excellence, of psychology, of spirituality, the more lonely we will be becoming, unfortunately. Still feeling like we have a group conversations, but we're gonna be much more polarized, much more happening in the virtual, and much more confusing. And it's gonna be very hard as a society to agree on what we're trying to achieve as society, practically speaking. This is my kind of dark reading of it.
Yeah, just put a question on the chat as well if anyone wants to comment on that. Just a more simple one, not so abstract or philosophical. Because if any of you are like currently teaching or developing materials or doing anything with AI, it would be cool to just share the experience. We are not judging at all here because we are trying to do these things as well here at the Open Knowledge Foundation, and we basically don't know how to do it. We're learning, so that's why we're having these sessions as well to share these kind of challenges. See the people typing. Software heritage, rework on traceability.
Okay.
So
Yes.
go ahead, Tatiana.
I don't know. Yes, I don't know if I'm audible. I was losing some of the interventions in between. Yeah. So I think I'll start from the aspect of maybe the theme of this session, which is teaching AI, and we talk of AI literacy. And just to also relate to one of the speakers.
I think we lost you right there.
Am I audible?
Now, yeah, you are again. Yeah, please go.
Am I audible now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will just try to be quick. So just to react to one of the speakers who was saying it's more, and I think it's something that goes back to what we call AI literacy. It's something that goes back to us and AI education. How do we understand this element or this thing? I would say a buzzword called AI, because I think we are now using it everywhere. And even if when it's not needed, like we are now even applying the term anyway, even when it's not even applicable, just because sometimes we want to make things fancy. So I think it has to go back to that AI literacy, AI education, so that as people, whether technical or non-technical people, we understand what it really is. We understand its capabilities. We also understand its weaknesses, if I may say, and also understand where to use it and when not to use it. So I'll just give an example of what we're doing with AAOO. The idea is to promote this element of equitable digital technology or empowerment, where we also to bring is what we have been seeing meeting the communities in different parts of the global south is when you talk of AI, some they are even against it, like to the core. And some they've got an element where they say AI is there to replace us. But is it true? The answer is no, it's not true. AI is not there to replace us. Is AI bad? I would also say the answer is no, right? So it just goes back to how are we going to educate, be it our consumers, how are we going to educate the people that we work with when we are developing these systems, so that they are not being left behind. So our idea is not human in the loop, but human in the chain, in the production chain, in the process, where people understand where the data is coming from, who is producing the data, how is the data being collected, and how is the model being trained. So these are very, very important key elements that we need also to be cognizant of, to say if we are to use AI tools, we need to understand the chain. How was this model produced? Which protocols were communities being engaged? Or we are just dealing with synthetic data, which is being generated by synthetic data, which is being used to train the models. And with synthetic data, you should know that it's not real data. So it doesn't have the human factor, it doesn't have the human element. So I think these are the elements that I think we need to be cognizant of. And yeah.
If I can say something to Tatenda, if that makes sense, is that I think what you're saying is extremely important, and there's no way out. Like not only you, but many other actors in the field have to deal with the fact that it doesn't matter if you even say if this is good or bad. I think it is here to stay, and we will learn at some point how bad and how good it was. But there's no escape from the fact that we will have AI embedded in many different kinds of things, and there will be different constellations, collaboration between state, between tech companies, the military and so whatnot, and there's no way out. But that has a problem. That has the same problem as for example, in European Union, we have this new proposal, the EU stack, where it is proposing kind of sovereign way of building technology for Europe that is independent from US and from China, Russia, whatnot, and so on. And what they do, which is important work, they kind of replicate what the big tech give us and try to build the same things with technologies that they trust more, open source based on specific kinds of crypto methodologies and so on, etc. That requires equally similar investment and equally similar infrastructure. And I kind of know that it's not going to happen because non-EU country altogether have the resources and time to deploy any of it, and the technology developed by big actors that are now fighting for the kind of primacy is the China and US. However, I also think and we have to do that work. There's no way out. So I'm saying you're doing amazing job that you're doing that. But I also would challenge organizations like ourselves, but Open Knowledge Foundation, because Open Knowledge Foundation stands for knowledge. Knowledge is not information. It's just one of the elements. Computed information is not knowledge. It's a fragment of it. And somehow we're living in the world dictated by big tech that figure out how to process data, how to compute it, and so on, etc., in a very binary way. And I would like to be able to think about knowledge also in different ways. That is not necessarily. Do we need more information? Is my question. To understand how bad climate change is. We have this whole fight for new tools to produce more information about the crisis of XYZ. And my thinking is, we know already what the problem is. What we need to spend this money and technology and resources and a global understanding, not just the understanding of tech companies, is to pinpoint the problem and find the tools to fight the problem. And that not necessarily maybe AI. Maybe AI is not the best idea, and spend of money and all these resources, and those are intellectual resources. Like so much effort from super intelligent, well-trained, well-educated people goes to these businesses right now, and I'm kind of thinking this is disproportionate to what we should be looking at, spending money and investing this massive, knowledge that we have created as a society. So I would also kind of, when you open Knowledge Foundation, Tactical Tech, etc., think about how we're not falling in the kind of a rabbit hole of computation and total information system that they have to, make it more democratic or more open or involve other people, but we're still developing the same systemic thinking about the world. And I'm like, not sure that's the right thing to do.
I don't know if it was orientation, but it's a great closing. Yeah, almost on time. 2 minutes left only. But yeah, it's a great wrap, and the notion of flow, knowledge, information, and all these things. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's just a phrase that comes to my mind, that the Stuart Hall's famous phrase of like, oh, the role of the left is is to avoid fascism, right? Fascism. I'm not saying we are all left here. We're not going to that discussion, but let's say all the progressive minds, the critical people, to avoid fascism. And AI is a tool that can be, or maybe it's the most brutal fascist creation, honestly, because it really puts everything into like binary things or pattern recognition, all these things that are on the screen now, whatever. Of course, they can do good. Yes, there are some uses, of course, and we are trying to explore them. But like, it's actually something that transforms society. Something more mechanic, to use some word, right? So maybe the role of us progressive technologists, or however we can call us ourselves, is to avoid that to happen, right? Doesn't mean that we are going to win, but at least like trying to create spaces, or have some not only political imagination around it, but like some action, and that's what we are trying to do here, right? I don't know if open source is the answer only. It's one of the answers. We are trying to do open source AI, as Marek said, like it will be common, much more common, and there will be resistances and other models and stuff that we are trying, like with local models, blah blah. But yeah, that's maybe like we are creating this parallel world, or some, trying to use AI for good, but knowing that this battle is like goes beyond us, right? We don't have the power to really defeat them. It's not about that. Anyway, with these final words, anyone who wants to react or ask any final questions? If not, we can just wrap up here and wait for you all in the next open session, which will be discussing governance for the future stewardship and governance for the Open Data Editor app. We're also trying to make everything community driven, and also the governance of the app. So that will be the discussion for next month. Tatenda, so that's comments, and then we wrap up with a bye-bye from Marek.
Yes, maybe just to react on Marek's one of something that he said about the EU's governance thing, or the sovereignty framework. I think theoretically it's an amazing thing, but then maybe I think it's coming from a reactionary perspective, and we don't need that. We don't need to operate in a reactionary way, but we rather need to, not to create silos, if I can say. If I can speak a lot, but just for the sake of time, that's what I can say.
That's it. Thanks a lot, Tatenda, and everyone for their contributions. Marek, a few last words? Or sure? Yeah.
No, I think we over time, and we have to
That's it.
go and be more efficient. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. I see people are typing. Hopefully, it's just a goodbye. If you have any questions, you can just write to us, or just reach out to us. I think we all know how to do it. Thank you very much, and bye-bye. Thank you.